welcome to Vikings Happy Hour, where we mix our favorite beverage and talk of your Minnesota Vikings.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Vikings Happy Hour. I am stoked this week. It's free agency. It's St. Patrick's Day. I haven't seen Flip in God knows how long. It's so good to have you back on the show.
Too long.
And our buddy Deshawn, new member of CTP, making his appearance this week. So welcome, you guys. How are you doing? You heard it right there. I gave David the go-ahead to give us that horn because we're going to skip intros. I don't care how you're doing right now. I want to know instant reaction takes. I feel like we're in a prime position tonight to talk about what just came out moments before we hopped on this show. It's Patrick Peterson to the Minnesota Vikings, one-year deal, $10 million.
There you go, guys. Patrick Peterson.
Skull Vikes.
Zimmer gets a veteran corner that he was searching for, maybe similar to the Terrence Newman back when he first came here. What do you guys think? Deshawn, I'll toss it to you first. I know you had some stuff to say before we went live about Patrick Peterson, so give me your thoughts. You like the signing?
I do, and I think Patrick Peterson is like that spark plug kind of guy. He's the guy you get when you're feeling confident about your next season. And I'm not entirely sure if the Vikings should be in that position where they feel like they're confident into making that run, but it shows that Zimmer he's serious about what could be his last year. So I think you make this move. I think they go after another person in free agency, whether that be a guard or something like that. But I think this is when it's nice to see the Vikings get aggressive in free agency, first of all. And I think also draft-wise, I think this also signals that they might be comfortable either taking Slater or AVT or trading back and getting AVT. Because, I mean, you don't sign a $10 million corner with gaping holes on your offensive line if you don't have a plan. So they probably have like a plan A, plan B, plan C kind of thing. Pat Pete fell in their laps. They're like, let's pull the trigger here because you're not going to get a turnover machine like Pat Pete anywhere. And then let's try to fill in the gaps at offensive line.
Well, so I see in the comments right away, Steven's hitting the chat hard. Waste of resources. Zimmer needs to be fired. Before we went live, Flip, you said we got Patrick Peterson. I don't care how much it costs.
Yeah, it's a splash, and it just happened. Let's have some fun with it. We don't need to be concerned with what this means for the overall roster. I mean, the main point here is that we got a veteran cornerback for a team that has a young CB roster, around him. This is a guy who can not only come off and play and produce solid cornerback play, but he can also, help coach and mentor Jeff Gladney, Cameron Dantzler, Mike Hughes. If you think about the entire Mike Zimmer era, he has always had that veteran presence to reinforce the young corners he's had, whether it's a Captain Munnerlyn, whether it's a Terrence Newman. Patrick Peterson is that next mentor. He's a guy with a decade of solid cornerback play. And the fact that he's excited to come join the Minnesota Vikings. And I can't imagine how happy a young Cameron Dantzler could be sitting at home right now. I can't imagine how happy a young Jeff Gladney could be as high school, Pee-wee high school players watching the NFL, watching Patrick Peterson, and now they get to learn directly from him. And then, of course, we've got the LSU connection, which extends to, I don't know, it feels like the Vikings have maybe a disgruntled defensive end. Where did he go to school? Okay. It feels, the Vikings have a star rookie wide receiver. Where did he go to school? And if you know LSU circles, they run a tight-knit group. And I promise you, that is a factor here from a leadership standpoint, not just on the field, but off the field in the locker room. This is an incredible ad for the Minnesota Vikings. Can I say it's all going to work out? No. Can I say that the Vikings don't have any other needs anymore? No, but this is a fun signing and a guy who if he fits, it's going to be a home run signing for this 1 year.
And I think you bring up a solid point in that it may not even matter how well he plays, right? But we just lost Kyle Rudolph, a captain on this team. We just lost Riley Reif, a captain on this team. This team is in need of some leadership again. And not that there aren't other players on the field that could do that, but you bring in a guy like Patrick Peterson, well respected across the league, as you alluded to, Gladney, Hughes, Dantzler, all these guys coming up. Hell, there's probably going to be a rookie corner, maybe. All these guys are going to get to learn from this great cornerback and teach them their ways. And we've seen Zimmer in the past with Terrence Newman kind of extend those end of years, right? Like he's fine kind of playing his corners on a snap count when they're getting up in that age, like Terrence Newman, and relying on him when he really needs him to. I'm pretty sure at the end of Newman's career, we still trusted him pretty fully. So I do want to ask you, Deshawn, do you think it matters if like where he plays? I know we saw a rumor a couple weeks ago or a week ago that he potentially could play safety. Where do you think he's going to play for us?
It's hard to say now. I think it depends on how the draft board falls. Because if we trade back and Zimmer finds a corner that he likes, Zimmer's going to take him. We know Zimmer. He finds a Greg Newsome late. He finds Eric Stokes late. He's going to take him. And then at that point, Pat Pete probably plays safety. But I think you just have him on the field. So now you have Harrison Smith, Patrick Peterson, Eric Kendricks, 3 interception machines at every level of your defense. And then if they can bring Hunter back, you get this group that can generate turnovers, something that we missed sorely. And I think that's probably the biggest thing with signing Pat Pete is that the offense, yes, we had a bad offensive line, but we still scored points. We didn't have a bad offense. It can improve, but we didn't have a bad offense. So now you bring in this defense. One is probably not going to let people run very well, and then that can generate turnovers, and you have this improved team already without addressing what was probably your biggest need on the offensive line. So now the offseason, it's the first day of free agency. They have a very long time. They still can extend Harrison Smith. I don't think the Thielen deal was like official yet, but I think it's coming soon or something of the sort. If they decide to extend Danielle Hunter, that's more money there. So I don't want people to think that like the Pat Pete signing is just like it and done. And now the offensive line is just left in shambles. It's a long offseason. We still got months. We got months before even OTAs. So it's like they still have time to make moves, but this defensive addition was necessary because it was something that we missed. I mean, Dantzler kind of came on at the end. He had a couple of interceptions, but it just wasn't enough. So now you pair these 4 superstar players together on defense, and you got Anthony Barr coming back, and you can add pass rush. You're starting to look at a defense that was like 2017, and I think that's the route Zimmer wanted to go. And now we just have to see if he can do what it takes to at least get the offensive line to a point where it's not a liability.
Zimmer and Rick, they're gonna find the cheapest, dirtiest offensive guard they can find. But to be real, going into free agency, veteran cornerback was my number 2 need. Only offensive guard was a higher need for me. I ranked defensive tackle as the 3rd highest need. So veteran cornerback was 100% a must-fill hold. And not just a need, an offseason need, but a free agency need because the Vikings already have these young corners. So we all saw, the William Jackson dream die. We all saw the Vikings chase Shaquille Griffin and come up short. I just think after those 2 corners, just no one even thought that Patrick Peterson was in the realm of possibilities for joining the Vikings. That alone makes it something worth paying up for. Coming into the day, I was focused more on maybe we can get a 3 or 4 year vet corner. Didn't want to spend $5 or $6 million. This is the only corner left on the market where I'm okay that they spent more than $5 or $6 million on.
Yeah. David, I know you're not on camera. I want you to come out here for a second though, and I want to hear your thoughts on Patrick P. I know you're just as excited as we are. So, any thoughts on Patrick Peterson coming to the Vikes?
I think it's very much going to be like a Newman move, where he's mentor, on-field coach type stuff, inspiring, especially those young corners. He can play both corner and safety if needed. The direction he goes, I think, depends how the draft goes. If they do redo sign Harris, uh, whatever. I think it's a great move by the Vikings to shore up and firm up with some veteran leadership that defense. Now, I saw in the remarks that what's wrong with, Smith, Kendricks, and Barr for leadership. Well, Smith is the quiet type. Barr doesn't do a whole lot of leadership on the line that you see, right? Granted, he's got the green dot when he has it. Then Kendricks has a green dot, but none of them are that confidence building type for that backfield. I'd rather have that like Newman, when Newman and Harrison Smith was back there, and Newman was at corner bouncing around doing all the other things. It glued that defense together and made it a top 5 defense. I'm hoping Patrick on St. Patrick's Day will do the same.
St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Jerome, not Jerome, Steven. Steven, did I talk you off the ledge? I hope I talked you off the ledge, Steven, because I know we still got those interior offensive line needs. I hope you're feeling better about this Patrick Peterson pickup for the Minnesota Vikings.
And I think Deshawn alluded to this too. I don't necessarily think that the offensive line is just going to be ignored. I fully expect them to still address something, and there's a lot of good free agent guards out there. I think we've been linked to Trai Turner. I forget what the other one's name is off the top of my head here, but people, you can be concerned about the cap hit that Patrick Peterson is going to take. I haven't seen the numbers as of 8:20 Central Time of what it comes up to. I'm sure it's not a fully $10 million guaranteed contract, but at the same time, we're hearing about Thielen getting restructured or reworking his deal to lower a cap hit. We're hearing about Harrison Smith potentially getting extended. So there's more money to potentially come, and maybe you can get a low-level guard to kind of come in here and play. And I think, given a lot of the free agent signings that we've had 3 now, all on the defensive side of the ball. Deshawn, you're 100% right. I think this tells us where we're going in the draft, right? Like, I think offense is probably the priority as we head into the draft. What am I here? What am I seeing in chat here?
Steven's coming after you, man. Yeah, and you know what?
Oh.
He's right. It's going to be a cheap, dirty offensive lineman, and there's no denying that. The fact is, who I think Drew Samia is the starting left guard if the season started today. At best, that's going to be a veteran that they're able to pay $2 or $3 million. So it's going to be dirt cheap. If you ask me, this is a clear sign that they're okay keeping Ezra Cleveland at guard. There's no way that they're going to bring in 2 free agent guards now after the Tomlinson signing and the Peterson signing. Now you can argue that they are going to go into the draft and draft offensive guard high, but I don't really like the positional value of that move either. So to me, this is like find one cheap veteran guard and, ask yourself, is it Rashad Hill or is it a rookie draft pick who's going to bookend the offensive line at tackle?
Yeah, and, I wasn't planning on going on this tangent, and I'll end it quick, but I don't want to hear that Rick and Zimmer don't give a shit about the O-line. They have invested so much into this O-line. They signed Riley Leaf. They've drafted Garrett Bradbury, Ezra Cleveland, they have done what they can. Now, you can argue maybe they're shitty at scouting offensive linemen or that they just don't coach them up properly, but Brian O'Neill's a stud. Riley Reef just came off one of the best seasons of his career. Ezra Cleveland showed promise. So Bradbury, that's a topic for a different day, but we have shown that we care about the offensive line. But moving on from that, we have another signing that we need to talk about. Dalvin Tomlinson coming over from the New York Giants. Deshawn, what are your takes on that? You excited? Are you hesitant? We did just sign Michael Pierce last season.
I was a little hesitant at first because the Dalvin Tomlinson I knew from watching some of the Giants was more that nose tackle type, but that's because they had Leonard Williams. So now he kind of gets a chance to be the guy that rushes. And from what I've seen, some of the writers and analysts, people from the Giants side say is that he has that ability. He has that quick twitch ability along with the power to be that guy. So it's exciting to have two big men up front, to know that you probably won't be ran on as much as we were. Because that week in and week out, man, just getting crushed by people running the ball, man, it was getting bad. So you shore that up. And then I think a point of emphasis in the draft is going to be, that gap shooter type. I mean, I think they like Armon Watts. It's kind of like that rotational gap shooter, but I still got the gap shooter type and generate some pass rush. Zimmer's really good at manufacturing pressure, however it is that he does it. So I think having those two guys there, getting the opponent into third down situation, third and long if you can, and then let Zimmer worry about how we're going to get to the quarterback rather than having that 3-tech there that can kind of create it on his own. Now, if somebody decides to come out and pass on first down, then we might have an issue, but we'll have to see where that takes us.
Flip, what are your takes on Tomlinson? Do you like the signing?
Yeah, I think if I had to give it a grade in a vacuum, I'd probably give it a C or a C plus. Like I said, it's not the biggest. It wasn't the biggest need for me, and I think free agency is about filling needs. And to spend $11 million per year, even putting on some void years so that we're taking on dead cap when he's not even on the roster anymore in 2023. I mean, look, I love it. I love the fact that if you see defensive tackle as a need, and if you have to fix the running game, then Dalvin Tomlinson is the best singular way to improve your run defense. And I expect him to succeed in that and definitely shore up our run defense. Like Deshawn said, once you start getting into the scheme, the week-to-week matchups of the NFL, people are going to come out and they're still going to try to take advantage in the pass game when they see Michael Pierce and Dalvin Tomlinson on the field at the same time on first downs. So do I think this is a great move to shore up our run defense? Yes. Do I think that's going to have a big overall defensive impact to help us win more football games? Yes, but not $11 million worth of a yes for me.
So you're questioning maybe like the allocation of resources here then, because we've seen a lot of money go out the window in the last couple of days. And I know you mentioned that veteran corner was up on top of your list for heading into this offseason, but there are still a lot of holes to be plugged. I know you're not a wide receiver 3 kind of guy or going out to sign one, but still, nonetheless, a lot of people out there to sign. Which if there's anything else you guys have to add on Dalvin Tomlinson, we can certainly chat about him. But I would like to keep moving.
Well, yeah, Mike Zimmer gets his toys. That's what this is about. That's what this entire free agency has been about. That from the start, they immediately came out and they said goodbye to Riley Reif and Kyle Rudolph. And then they were much more hesitant to say goodbye to people like Shamar Stephen. They were more hesitant to restructure Anthony Barr. They even waited until the last moment to decide to turn down Ifeadi Odenigbo's tender to be a restricted free agent. So this is Mike Zimmer getting his toys. This is Mike Zimmer fixing his defense at all costs. If you had asked me at the start of the free agency the Vikings a week ago had negative cap space. And if you had asked me then, we're going to have two big signings. I looked at the top 50 free agent list on The Athletic. I was like, there's no way the Vikings get any of these guys in the top 50. They're just going to be looking for bargains. Well, now we're sitting here and the Vikings have two players on that top 50 free agency list, and they're both on the defensive side of the ball. So Mike Zimmer gets his toys. This is the setup for a no excuses 2021 for Mike Zimmer. If you can't win with Danielle Hunter and Dalvin Tomlinson and Harrison Smith and Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks and Michael Pierce and Patrick Peterson, then you got to get out of town.
And I think we're seeing that, right? It's all in. They are all in to save their asses this year. I don't necessarily know if it's Super Bowl or bust. It should be that every year, but it's definitely playoff or bust, because if they don't make some noise in the playoffs, at least making it past that first round or clinching a bye and winning a game, I think Zim knows. I think he's out the door. David, will you give me the horn again? Speaking of Afadi Odenigbo, just got $2.5 million to sign with the New York Giants tonight. 1-year deal. So we'll take Dalvin Tomlinson. They can take Afadi Odenigbo, though the money wise is a lot different. $2.5 million compared to Dalvin's 11, I think it is. So another free agent that I want to talk to you guys about tonight, and I don't think I prepped you for it at all, but I'm sure you have a lot of takes on it. Chad Beebe back on a 1-year deal, $920,000. Vet min, wide receiver 3 spot is filled. Flip. We don't need to go get Keelan Cole. We don't need to go get Kendrick Bourne.
I mean, we really got to talk about Chad Beebe right now.
Hey, I just wanted to give you a platform. If you don't want to talk about him, we can keep moving. Trust me, I've spent way too long talking about Chad Beebe in my life than I'd ever want to.
Yeah, I think he is a great fifth wide receiver to have based on what he's done when healthy. This is a signing that does nothing for me. I mean, the Nick Vigil signing does more than Chad Beebe. The Rashad Hill certainly does more than Chad Beebe. It's a 1-year deal, which means that they know that this is like almost like a prove it season for Chad Beebe, which sounds hilarious. But at the end of the day, it's vet minimum. He knows the system. He looks like the offensive coordinator. If you line Clint Kubiak and Chad Beebe next to each other, I'm not going to be able to tell you which one is which. So sure, yeah, let's keep him in purple.
Deshawn, do you have anything to say?
So I don't think the Vikings really value wide receiver 3 much. So, I mean, like Flip said, the signing doesn't really do much for me other than seeing people lose their minds about it. But the Vikings already, in my opinion, have 4 viable wide receivers. I think that last 4 games last year when Irv Smith and Tyler Conklin really show they have the ability to separate from defenders was huge. So now we have Thielen, we have Jefferson, we have 2 tight ends who can catch the ball. So, I mean, bringing BB back probably just for camp competition. I do expect them to bring somebody in to challenge him and BC Johnson, who had a disappointing season. But I think what this showed me is that it won't be like a second, maybe not even a 3rd round pick. I think it'll probably be someone later. Like that one, I think the year they brought in BC Johnson and another guy like Dylan Mitchell or something like that team. But I think we might see a situation like that again.
Just because Chad Beebe's on the team, you're saying they think that wide receiver is good until day 3 of the draft.
For the Vikings themselves, I think they do. I mean, Irv Smith and Tyler Conklin, they put on a show those last 4 games. I mean, they were like viable options. And then you already have Dalvin Cook, who's the focal point of the offense. And then you have Thielen. I just don't see it. I mean, now they do have a surplus of picks. I mean, they have that. If they go at 14, I can see it being more likely that they wait until the 4th round. But if they trade back and they get that 2nd round pick, there's a chance that best player on the board is a guy like Diami Brown or Tylen Wallace, and they take that pick. But if we get into the position where I think we're crunched for picks because we picked at 14, I would not be surprised if they didn't take a wide receiver.
The issue with the offensive roster right now is there's no backup plan at any spot. And it's not just, they talk about bringing Sean Mannion back. Well, if Kirk Cousins get injured, we're screwed. If Justin Jefferson gets injured, we're screwed. If Brian O'Neill gets injured, we're screwed. If Dalvin Cook gets injured, we're screwed. So, we have to start adding some viable, not just starters. If Irv Smith gets injured, we're screwed. We have to start addressing the depth here with viable players, good wide receivers who can step in immediately, depth options along the offensive line, another tight end would certainly help. So that's where I get the whole thing. Look, the starting offense looks great, but there is no depth behind any of them.
There, with the exception of Cook, right? Madison he will suffice if Cook goes.
We've been down the road before. We've seen the Vikings offense with Alex Madison instead of Dalvin Cook, and it did not look good.
That's because Dalvin is Dalvin. Dalvin is there's nobody else like Dalvin Cook. So the offense is going to take a hit. And I think at that point, it's up to hopefully Clint being able to transition from that run first to be able to utilize his weapons to take the pressure off Alexander Madison because he can't be Dalvin Cook. But right. I do understand the need for depth. But in the recent years, when we've lost a wide receiver or tight end, it's been relatively okay. When we lost Thielen for that extended period of time and we had Stephon Diggs, it was relatively okay. And then when we lost Thielen again against the Panthers, Justin Jefferson came in, took over, had 2 touchdowns and I think 70 or 80 yards. So and then Chad Beebe had a career high that day. So there are guys on this roster that can step up and be that guy in case someone goes out. But I do understand wanting to have kind of that dynamic 5th or 6th option that can survive a couple weeks in case a guy goes down.
Yeah, I will argue that when Thielen went out, Diggs was able to kind of cover up that role of him being out.
For a few games.
For a few games, but teams will figure it out, and the same thing goes for Jefferson too. He exploded that game Thielen was out, but you leave a person out for an extended period of time, teams will scheme for it and they will eliminate that. I mean, Jefferson towards the end of the season was seeing, double team, triple team, all over the board. But I'm going to keep the train moving. I want to talk about some rumored free agents that have been linked to the Vikings, and I don't know if anything changes now, right? I think yesterday at this time, even this morning, I had tweeted out something along the lines of if we can just go get MacKensie Alexander back, re-sign Anthony Harris, get a low-level guard or a average guard to bring in here, I would be content with that going forward. I don't know what the rest of free agency looks for us. Do you guys think that of the guys I mentioned, Mac Alexander, Keanu Neal, Anthony Harris, do you think that they're still looking at them now that they signed Patrick Peterson?
I mean, Deshawn might have a more optimistic picture on this. It's a wrap, if you ask me. It's a like I said, it's a cheap.
I think free agency's done then.
It's a cheap, dirty guard, and it's a wrap. Like Steven Jerome saying I need to get a Chad Beebe jersey. I don't even know what number he is. He number 12? I don't even know what number he is. It's a cheap, dirty guard, and then look, it's probably either a rookie or Harrison Hand starting across from Harrison Smith, at free safety, it's probably Stephen Weatherly starting at defensive end across from Danielle Hunter. A lot of people talking about how they can extend players to create more cap space. The Vikings, this regime notoriously has waited until preseason, until training camp to offer large multi-year extensions. So if they do some type of workout for 1 or 2 years with Harrison Smith, that'd be more of like what they did with like a Brian Robeson the year before they cut him, or an Everson Griffin, in order to make space for Anthony Barr. That isn't the rewarding. If you want Harrison Smith to get that 5-year retire as a Viking type contract, that's going to come in August. That's not going to come in March. Same with Brian O'Neill. If you want Brian O'Neill to hit on that big second contract, that's going to come in August. That's not going to come in March. So for me, it's a wrap with free agency. Get that veteran guard, make sure he's cheap, and then roll into the draft and focus on offense.
Do you agree, Deshawn? Do you think they're just a dirty old guard away and then heading into the draft?
So, the way this free agency is kind of setting up, we have a couple days until we get into that second and third wave of free agency, but that second and third wave is going to have some really solid guards there. So that dirty cheap guard might not be, as guys like Austin Blythe aren't really getting much attention. Trai Turner, there's like a J.R. Sweezy. There's guys out there who can step in and just instantly become better than Dakota Dozier. And what a lot of fans think is that's all the Vikings need. They don't need to have like a Joe Thuney there to be good. So that cheap option might actually be the thing that they need. But I do agree that I think free agency is probably wrapped up. They get the guard prospect, which I think I'm leaning Lamp or Turner is probably going to be who we sign. And then
that's what Steven's saying in the comments. Now,
the edge is kind of iffy, but I think if they were okay with Odenigbo starting, I think they might, which I'm not sure they were when they pulled the move for Ngakoue. I don't know whether they thought Danielle would be out for a long time or if they truly wanted to pair the two. But if they were okay with Odenigbo starting, they're probably okay with Weatherly starting, whether that's a good or bad thing. Which, I mean, if you can add to the rotation, it's not horrible, especially if Danielle Hunter comes back 100%. But I don't see them making a move for a big edge guy. I think Pat Pete was and Dalvin Tomlinson was kind of like their big, and now they'll go more like Nick Vigil types the rest of the way.
You led me right into the next topic I want to talk about. You brought up his name, Freddie Hall. He's asking us questions in the chat about defensive ends at 14. Danielle Hunter, we found out this week on tampering day. Chad Graff breaks the news, not the nude, breaks the news that that Danielle Hunter is unhappy right now with his current contract. I personally, I have gone back and forth on this. I think I've been, I remember talking with Flip back in last June when we were talking about Dalvin Cook. I'm always an advocate for players maximizing their value, maximizing their worth, and going to get that cash. And so this situation for me has been a little bit different because I didn't know where to stand at first. Like Danielle Hunter signed that deal. He knew that there was a chance that the edge market took off. He knew how long the contract was. I think everybody knew the second he signed it, what a bargain it was, right? And here we are 3 years later, and he wants a new deal. I have finally come around. I am still on Danielle Hunter's side. I agree the Vikings should pay him. I don't care about his injury risk. I think it's a risk reward. I know injuries are scary in the NFL, but anybody could go down, and you have a bunch of money tied up in them, and you just don't know. And so I think the Vikings operate on good faith quite a bit, and I think that they should give Danielle Hunter some money. But I am curious to get your guys' thoughts on what's going on with Danielle Hunter. What do you think what the Vikings should do, Flip?
I don't think it's that complicated. I think that you pay the man, and you're going to probably get a discount just because he didn't play last year. You definitely want to see him earn some of that new contract, but we can't just base Danielle Hunter off of 1 year. I mean, the guy came in and he's been flashing and producing and playing at an elite level since he got here. And that's not to say we should reward him for his past performance. That's to say that if you believe in a healthy Danielle Hunter, then you should believe as a Vikings fan that he's going to put up elite defensive end play. That is a bet you're making, and you should be able to make that bet on Danielle Hunter more than you would any other Viking on the roster right now. So you pay the man. With Danielle, I understand that he signed that contract extension, and he is tied to that to some extent. But the key in his contract right now isn't just the overall amount. It's the fact that there's zero guaranteed money left on that deal. So at minimum, you have to increase the amount of guarantees you're giving the best player on your defense. And, maybe that comes with an extension that increases his pay near the $19-20 million range.
Do you think that's worth it, Deshawn? Or do you think that we should try and go to get a Khalil Mack type deal and really restore this roster?
Oh, I definitely think it's worth it. And I think Flip was right about believing in your players. And I think the Vikings believed in Hunter the moment he came in as a rookie and kind of shined right away. So they were really smart to get that contract done early and get him kind of there on a bargain deal where he just kind of showed out year after year after year. But as a team, I mean, you have these players on bargain deals, but as a team, you still have to take care of your best players. He is by far the best player on your defense, and you have to take care of your guy. So I was kind of iffy. I was like kind of demanding a new contract a year after you didn't take any snaps is a little iffy. But seeing what these guys in free agency are getting, like $16 million a year, $15 million a year, and the Hunter is like $5 million. You have to.
So I hear what you guys are saying. You say we should grant him the money. We should sign him to a contract extension, whatever. Now I want to know, what do you think the Vikings are going to do? We've heard it in the past with Stephon Diggs, with Percy Harvin. A disgruntled player rarely ever, overcomes that here in Minnesota. Rick gives the charade of, oh, we're not interested in trading him. Everything's fine, blah, blah, blah. Next week, they're gone, kind of a thing. Do you think that's what's going to happen here in Minnesota, or do you think that they'll let bygones be bygones and just kind of make up?
I appreciate the way you asked that question, Matt, separating the what should they do versus what will they do. It seems like you've been catching on how to manage Flip here. I guess my question is, if you think there is a 1% chance they trade Danielle Hunter, then what the hell are you doing signing Dalvin Tomlinson on a 2-year contract and signing Patrick Peterson on a 1-year contract? How does that make any sense at all, these defensive improvements, if you're just going to turn around and trade Danielle Hunter away? It doesn't add up. They are either idiots or they'll extend Danielle Hunter and give him the payday he deserves.
But I want to talk about, when we think about it, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. I want to get a little conflict going on. But if we think about trading Danielle Hunter, what did Khalil Mack get back for the Raiders? I think it was like a couple firsts, a second, a third, whatever. Imagine that this year. Imagine that for the Vikings this year.
Okay, well, maybe I need to take my comment, because you said, what will they do? And we know the Vikings are trying to build to win now. Mike Zimmer's trying to save his job. So if you want to talk about should they consider a big
you're right.
Danielle
I'm bouncing back and forth here.
All over the place, man. All over the place.
I'm on like my fourth beer. This is Vikings Happy Hour. Give me a break
are,
here.
are we even drinking? I thought we were announcing what we were drinking. Like
Yes.
I'm here drinking on a Wednesday night. I didn't even get to tell people.
Pause the pod. Here we go. We skipped this because we had to dive right into Patrick Peterson news. It's already gone for me. I'll start. I had a Guinness for St. Patrick's Day. I even have the glass,
Nice.
A custom-made glass by one of my buddies. I won't read the quote, but if you DM me, I'll tell you what it is. And now I got some Mick Golden because I only wanted to drink one Guinness. But what do you got, Flip? It's a Wednesday night. You're out in sunny California.
I've got this. Y'all can't read the label, but this is pink label. This is a Pinhook Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey. I have no idea where it comes from, but it tastes really good. Pinhook, Pinhook. Pinhook. Check it out.
Deshawn, are you drinking anything tonight?
Yeah, I'm not much of a beer man, so I got some
It
Stella
doesn't need
Rose,
to be beer.
some French vanilla.
Hey,
some French vanilla wine going on over here.
A little bit of something to celebrate. Deshawn, congratulations today on the job interview and your classes. So,
hell yeah!
Cheers to that. David, what do you got?
I've got a stout. I don't have any green beer, so I went with Fremont, made in Seattle, Dark Star Stout, because you're drinking Guinness. I can tell you when I was stationed in England, Guinness, fresh from the brewery, both in Ireland and in England, Scotland, all in that area, is just, it's awesome. Not quite the same here in the States, but not too bad. But there's a lot of great stouts in the States.
Looks like we need to head over to England then, huh? Get some good Guinness.
They do some great beer, too.
We do have a few minutes left in the show tonight. We're doing things a little backwards. I threw Flip for a whirlwind there. I let's just throw it quick back on that trade discussion, because I do want to talk a little bit about that. Let's say the Vikings trade Danielle Hunter, and they get that back. Like, is that something you guys like? Would you like that return?
So I look at the Mac trade, and I think people talk about what what Oakland actually got for that trade. I think what's missing is the fact that what did Oakland do with those picks? Well, number one, they stayed with their quarterback and tried to build around that quarterback. So my question for you is, if you were going to do the Danielle Hunter trade, if you're going to trade away your best defender for a bounty of picks, how are you going to use those picks to build around Kirk Cousins to give either the offense or the defense what they don't already have? That would be I guess I answered a question with a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you phrase it that way, it leaves a glaring hole on both sides of the defensive line. Right now, there's two edge positions that need to be filled. Are you just going to use those picks to draft, edge players, whatever you want to? Because I doubt in this scenario, right? I doubt that they're going to draft a quarterback that high. Maybe they do. So yeah, I guess you're proving me wrong here on my devil's advocate take here, but the Vikings are all in right now, right? Zimmer, Spielman, everybody's all in. Doesn't make sense to trade Hunter at any point. I do think that if they want to give him like a common ground kind of restructure or extension like they did with Anthony Barr, to kind of say, hey, here's some money, we'll give you money, you can hit free agency early, whatever. Because I do think the reason Anthony Barr took that restructure, and now I'm really bouncing around, going all the way over there, but the reason I think Anthony Barr took that restructure is in part to, I think the players are pretty clear that they know that if Zimmer doesn't perform this year, he's gone too. And so why would you want to stick around for something that could be a 2-3 year rebuild with a new head coach? Deshawn, Any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think if you trade Hunter, you're looking towards the future. So I don't think you trade Hunter and expect to come out of it competitive this season. So I don't see this, especially where this regime is kind of being the if you don't perform well, you're out of here. So I don't see them being willing to trade Hunter without like a guarantee that they can stick around and actually rebuild it. So if Hunter was disgruntled enough to want to leave, then I'm trading this. I'm kind of making this a lame duck year, and I'm getting ready to move on from Cousins. And I think that would probably be the smartest thing because you're gonna get a lot back from Danielle Hunter. You might even be able to match the Khalil Mack trade, and that's really all you would need to get up into that range to draft your QB of the future. And I think that's what you have to do. You've been missing that top notch guy for since 2009. So that's what you do. You take your swing if you're going to trade. And yeah, that's not a future I want to see though. So
it might be a realistic future.
Well, but that would be the easiest way if the Vikings were ready to give up on 2021 now, then yes, you could trade away Danielle Hunter, get those picks, and then you have to fall in love with the guy. You're not just taking any quarterback. You have to say, look, we're only trading Danielle Hunter away because we love Zach Wilson, or we're only trading Danielle Hunter away because we're going to bring in Deshaun Watson. And if you don't feel great about any of the quarterbacks in this draft, I don't know if the Vikings do or not, but if they don't feel great, then you just keep Danielle Hunter, and you guess what? You can trade him next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That new GM, because I don't want to sound like a pessimist, but that new GM, they might want to do that, right? That next offseason might be a time to say, see ya, Kirk, trade a big chip asset, and let's start rebuilding this thing from the ground up with some pivotal pieces like Justin Jefferson. So,
and all the fans are telling you, man, it's not going to happen.
I know it's not going to happen. I got to play
shout
devil's
out to
advocate.
my man, Ryan. Ryan calling, giving me a shout out. Thank you, Ryan. Sorry, I'm just kind of taking over now, talking to all my people in the comments. I'm not going to start blowing y'all kisses, but we're having fun.
I was just talking to David before we went live. It's all the fans of Climb in the Pocket this week. They're getting a 3-peat for Flip Mazzi. You get In the Huddle on Tuesday night, Vikings Happy Hour Wednesday night, Vikings Hot Takes Thursday night. You can't. It's Flip week.
Too much. It's too much. I feel like Miley right before she went crazy, man. It's too much.
Oh my gosh, that is fantastic. Well, time is getting up. Last call, I guess. My beer's almost empty, so it's been a pleasure having both of you on tonight. Deshawn, Flip, you're always welcome on a pod when I have an opening, clearly. And some are coming up. You know, we're hitting draft week or draft coverage coming up here soon. I want to hype up next week's show. We have Eric Crocker, former NFL cornerback for the New York Jets. He's also the owner of Rise Athletics and the Crocker Report. Does a bunch of draft coverage. Really loves cornerbacks. And if you come back next week at 8 o'clock, it'll be me, him, and Miles going at it, talking cornerbacks, which I feel like is kind of irrelevant now, given the Patrick Peterson news. But we'll do it anyway because Eric Crocker's awesome. So if you haven't followed him, go do that now. Follow my guy Flip. Follow my guy Deshawn and David as well for producing. And with that being said, have a good night, everybody. Skol.
Skol Vikes.
Skol Vikings. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, if you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. And if you're listening to the podcast, please rate us on your favorite aggregator. Skol, everybody.